They say grief is loud, that it comes with screaming, crying, collapse. But nobody warns you about the kind of grief that goes quiet. The kind that makes people behave better than usual. The kind that looks like strength, until you realize it's something else entirely. If you've ever loved someone who stopped asking for help, this story is for you. And before we go any further, subscribe to this channel. Not because I'm chasing numbers, but because stories like this don't work if you miss the ending. And trust me, you don't want to miss this one. The morning everything continued. The morning after Mark Ellison disappeared. The house did something strange. It didn't feel shattered. It didn't feel empty. It felt paused, like the walls were waiting for instructions. Sarah noticed it first when she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, staring at her own reflection longer than necessary, as if she expected the mirror to explain what had happened. Mark's side of the sink was still wet. His towel still hung crooked, the way he always left it. She reached for it without thinking, then stopped. Her hand hovered there, mid-air, unsure whether touching it would make things real. Mark hadn't said goodbye. There was no fight. No dramatic last conversation. He had simply not come home. The police used words like missing and unconfirmed. Sarah used a different word, silently. Gone. Down the hallway, her daughter Lena was already awake. That alone was unusual. 16 years old. Late sleeper. Always complaining about mornings. But when Sarah opened Lena's door, she was sitting on the edge of her bed, fully dressed, backpack already on. Eyes open. Face calm. Too calm. Morning, Lena said. Her voice didn't wobble. Sarah waited for something. A crack, a tremor, a question. Nothing came. You don't have school today, Sarah said gently. I know, Lena replied. But I thought I'd go anyway. It's better to keep routine. Routine. That word landed wrong. Mark used to say that word. When things felt unstable. When he wanted control. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, she said. I'll make breakfast. Lena followed her into the kitchen, moving quietly, carefully, like a guest in her own house. Sarah pulled out 3 plates. Then 2. Then stared at the extra one in her hand, unsure when she'd grabbed it. Lena noticed. She didn't say anything. She just reached out and took the plate from her mother's hand, sliding it back into the cabinet with a soft, controlled motion. Like she'd done it before. Like she'd practiced. The sound of people trying too hard. By noon, the house filled with voices. Neighbors. Family. People who didn't know what to say but felt obligated to say something. Every sentence started with, if you need anything, and ended with silence. Sarah moved through it all like she was underwater. Smiling when expected. Nodding when appropriate. Lena stayed beside her the entire time. Not leaning. Not clinging. Standing. Watching. When people hugged Lena, she returned it politely, her arms stiff, her expression neutral. One woman whispered, "You're being so strong." Sarah felt something twist in her chest at that word. Strong. She didn't want Lena to be strong. She wanted her to be 16. Messy. Angry. Broken. Strength this early felt unnatural. That night, after everyone left, the silence came back, thicker now, heavier. Sarah lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Mark's pillow still smelled like his shampoo. She turned her face toward it without thinking. Her chest hurt. No tears came. Down the hallway, Lena's door opened. Sarah heard soft footsteps. Careful ones. Then the faint click of the study door downstairs. A drawer sliding open. Paper. Movement. No music. No phone. Just quiet activity. Sarah told herself it was nothing. Grief did strange things. Still she didn't sleep. What grief doesn't look like. The days that followed moved fast. Forms. Calls. Meetings with police that ended in "we'll keep you updated." Sarah went back to work sooner than she should have. Teaching high school history required focus. And focus felt safer than sitting alone with questions. Lena stayed home that week. When Sarah returned each afternoon, the house was spotless. Laundry folded. Dishes done. Dinner planned. Lena didn't ask permission. She didn't complain. She didn't talk. She moved with purpose. At night, the sounds continued. Sometimes the printer. Sometimes pages turning. Once, very late, Sarah thought she heard quiet breathing that sounded like someone trying not to cry. But when she stood outside Lena's door, everything went silent. Sarah didn't knock. She was afraid that whatever was holding her daughter together was thin and fragile and might shatter if touched. The moment that shouldn't have happened yet. One evening, Sarah came home early. She parked down the street instead of the driveway. She didn't know why. Instinct, maybe. The lights were on downstairs. Shadows moved behind the curtains. As she stepped closer, she heard Lena's voice. Not talking. Reading. Low. Measured. Focused. Sarah's heart began to race. She unlocked the door quietly. The reading stopped instantly. Lena stood in the living room, holding a thick folder. Papers covered the table. A small locked box sat open on the floor. They stared at each other. I didn't mean to scare you, Sarah said quickly. Lena relaxed, just a little. I thought you were at work. I came home early, Sarah replied. What are you doing? For a moment, Lena looked like she might lie. Instead, she gathered the papers and placed them carefully back into the box. I'll show you later, she said. Later? Sarah asked softly. When? Lena met her eyes. When it's time. That sentence stayed with Sarah long after Lena went to her room. When it's time. Time for what? Time for truth? Time for grief? Or time for something Mark had started and never finished? What Sarah didn't know yet was this. Her daughter wasn't falling apart. She was carrying something. And the longer she carried it alone, the heavier it became. The sentence, when it's time, followed Sarah everywhere. It followed her into sleep, into her classroom, into the quiet moments when the house felt too organized for a place where someone had vanished. Time, she realized, had started behaving differently. Days passed, but nothing resolved. Mark was still missing. No body. No answers. And Lena was still holding herself together in a way that felt intentional. Too intentional. The notebook. Sarah noticed the notebook by accident. Lena left her backpack by the door one morning, something she never did. It fell over when Sarah nudged it with her foot, and a small black notebook slid out, landing open on the floor. Sarah froze. She didn't touch it at first. She told herself not to invade her daughter's privacy. That grief came with boundaries. But then she saw the writing. Dates. Times. Short phrases written in Mark's handwriting. Her heart skipped. She knelt slowly and picked it up. Inside were entries like, check mailbox Friday. Bank call, don't forget. Sarah's medicine refill. Lena, remind her she's stronger than she thinks. Sarah's hands began to shake. This wasn't a diary. It was a continuation. Someone had been finishing something Mark started. She closed the notebook and put it back exactly where it had fallen, her chest tight, her thoughts racing. That night, she waited. The question that broke the silence. Dinner was quiet. Lena ate neatly, methodically, like she always had since Mark vanished. Sarah set her fork down. Lena, she said carefully. Are you angry with me? Lena looked up. No. Are you angry with your father? A pause. No. Sarah swallowed. Then what's happening? Lena stared at her plate for a long moment. Then she pushed it away. I'm just doing what he asked me to do. The words landed like weight. What do you mean? Sarah whispered. Lena stood. I'll tell you tonight, she said. I promise. What happened the night Mark left? They sat in the living room after sunset. The lights were low. The house quiet. Lena brought out the locked box Sarah had seen days earlier. She placed it gently on the coffee table, like something fragile. I need you to listen all the way, Lena said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were tired. Please don't interrupt. Sarah nodded. I promise. Lena took a breath. The night Dad disappeared, he didn't just leave. Sarah's chest tightened. He woke me up, Lena continued. Around 2 in the morning. He said he wasn't feeling right. She swallowed. He told me not to panic. He said he'd been planning for this. Planning. Sarah closed her eyes. He said there were things he couldn't tell you yet. That he didn't want you living in fear. Tears slid down Sarah's face silently. He asked me to help him finish something, Lena said. and to protect you from it until the right time. Lena opened the box. Inside were documents, letters, bank information, medical files, and a folded envelope with Sarah's name on it. The letter. Sarah's fingers trembled as she opened it. My Sarah, if you're reading this, then I didn't come back the way I hoped. I'm sorry I left questions behind. I did it this way because I wanted you to live, not wait. I didn't disappear because I stopped loving you. I disappeared because I loved you enough to make sure you were safe. Sarah gasped. The letter explained everything. Mark had been sick. Sicker than he admitted. But worse, he had uncovered something dangerous at his job. Something involving people who didn't want attention. He hadn't wanted to bring danger home. So he made arrangements. Quiet ones. He transferred accounts. Set timelines. Wrote instructions. And he trusted Lena with the truth. She's stronger than she knows, the letter read. And I know she'll protect you until you're ready. Sarah broke. She sobbed the way she hadn't since the night he vanished. Lena stayed where she was. She didn't cry. She had already done her crying alone. The weight Lena carried. I didn't want to be the strong one, Lena whispered. But he asked me. And I couldn't say no. Sarah pulled her into her arms. For the first time since Mark vanished, Lena collapsed. She cried hard, sharp, messy sobs that shook her whole body. I was so scared, she said between breaths. I didn't know if I was doing it right. You did, Sarah said, holding her tight. You did more than anyone should ever ask of you. The morning after truth. The next morning felt different. Not lighter, but honest. The house wasn't paused anymore. It was breathing again. Sarah made breakfast. Lena laughed, a small, unexpected sound that startled them both. They sat together at the table. 2 plates. Not because someone was missing, but because someone had been loved. Epilogue. Mark never came back. But his presence never left. Not in silence. Not in fear. But in the way Sarah learned to live again. And in the quiet truth that sometimes love doesn't end loudly. Sometimes it leaves instructions. Sometimes it trusts a child with courage. And sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who never asked to be strong at all. If the story stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone you lost, or someone who grew up too fast, then stay. Because some stories don't end when the screen goes dark. They end when we finally understand them,